Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about why I believe feminism is against God. And this video is not actually going to be super spiritual. It's not going to be about, I'm not going to get into abortion either. What I'm going to be talking about is basically at the root of a lot of the complaints and ailments that feminists go on about. It's a sense of not liking the way the world works, not liking how challenging it is to raise kids, not liking the human, especially the female desire to have children. And I'm going to get into why I believe these things in this video. There are several different kind of challenges that feminists talk about. But a lot of what I'm going to talk about in this video is more centered around the whole children and career aspect. So there's a lot of complaining about how hard it is for working moms. And I read this one article from this feminist, and I must say, I think she did a good job of expressing herself and the internal turmoil she was having about wanting to be this career woman, really enjoying her work, wanting to focus on that, wanting to be the best she could be in that area. But then she really had felt compelled to have a child. And she feels very torn and conflicted between these two things because basically she wants her career to be her primary, but then for some inexplicable reason, inexplicable to her, she feels so compelled to care for this child. And she doesn't want to leave that child. She is glad she had the child, but she pretty much wishes that she had not wanted that child because now she feels so trapped between two worlds and doesn't feel like she's being excellent at either. The problem is not your employer. The problem is not, oh, well, if only my work had on-site daycare. If only there were more lactation rooms. If only they gave us more time off after we have children. Which, by the way, why should a company owe you that? I mean, I am capitalist to the bone, but I mean, really, think about this. A company, they pay people because they are providing value. So if you just don't provide value for a certain amount of time, like why should they be compelled and forced to pay you? But anyway, feminists will want to blame the company and say, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. And it's basically just saying the world, society needs to accommodate my needs. I want to be home with my baby longer, so you are compelled morally to give to me. And this is not, do not get in my way of freedom of speech. This is a positive, right? Somebody has to give something to you. And saying you are just sexist and a jerk if you are a company who realizes that paying somebody for not doing anything is not something that creates a lot of business success. So that's one way that feminists get mad at the world. And I'm saying they're getting mad at society. But what they're really mad at is God. Because God created the world and He made it so that when children come out of your body, they are so dependent and they need so much and they take so much time. And so feminists may wish that 8 weeks would feel sufficient, or 6 weeks, or 8, 10, 12 weeks would feel sufficient, or be sufficient, but it's not. And then they wish that it was easier to then be a working mom to kind of balance that, but it's like, no, turns out your kids need you more than a couple hours a day. Turns out that if you just kind of outsource daycare for a lot of the time and then come home and you're like stressed and rushed and whatever, you do run into this situation where all you're doing is feeding and bathing and putting them to bed, and you're not really being a parent, and that feels crappy. And feminists say it's because of society. It's because people are sexist. People are just being mean to us. We are being oppressed by what? What are you being oppressed by? By reality. the reality of how challenging it is to have a baby or a newborn. All the way to 3 years, they are very needy. And that is the way God made it, And so if you have a problem with that, the real problem feminists have is really with God. And then it's also saying, God, why did I have to be born female where I desire this? It feels like something I kind of don't want. I feel torn about it. I don't want to want it. I don't want to want babies. I don't want to nurture my baby. And some of them have managed to cut that off, but also some of them are in this in between, what the heck? And that's where this woman her article was, you could just feel it. This tug and pull. And the real issue she has, it's she's looking to society, she's looking to politics to try to make it easier for her. But it's God who made it that way. And it's God ultimately that, I guess you could blame your father, but I'd say it's ultimately God who made women females. That person happened to have the XY chromosome, and that was up to God. And so, and it's being mad at God for saying, I wish that I could just be working. I don't want to be the one who kind of falls into this role. And then, feminists can be mad at men, but then you know what? Men are more helpful than ever. Men are better about spending time with their children. I do think that that's an important thing, and perhaps in other decades, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but maybe they really did not spend enough time with their children in the 50s or the 40s or whatever. But also, something else. The reality is that it's not the easiest thing ever to make a living and to create enough resources to provide for your family. Again, that kind of goes to God. God made this world. Or actually, if you really want to follow it even further, you can go to Adam and Eve and their sin and the fall of man, because then when Eve ate the apple and Adam did as well, God cursed the land, said it would be, you would have to toil over your living basically, and said, Eve, your pregnancies and childbirth is going to be worse. So ultimately it comes down to that and to sin, but God is the one who's in charge and God is the one who's sovereign. So it's you're blaming everybody else. Feminists are blaming society and men and da-da-da-da-da. And it's no, you're mad at the world. You're mad at the way the world works. You wish it weren't that way. You wish that perhaps, maybe, if we had longer in a day, if it just worked out that way. Maybe if there were 28 hours in a day and that's just the way it worked with sunlight and everything else, how much energy you had because you feel depleted. If only it weren't so hard. If only work weren't hard. If only parenting weren't hard, then it'd be easier. Yeah, but who is to blame for that? It's that's something you have to wrestle with and take up with God himself, not all of society, And so it's and I just feel like feminists are looking at these things, and then rather than roll with nature and say, you know what, if biologically I feel drawn to this is what I'm going to have to do. And maybe I'm just going to make being a mom be my primary. Perhaps I am going to have some side business or some side hustle, or I'm going to do some, but I'm not going to be, I'll have, this is a phrase I really like. Women more in the 50s, they'd maybe have jobs, but they didn't have careers. And so they'd maybe make money, but it wasn't about trying to get to the next level. If you're trying to be on the hustle path, and especially towards things like being a Fortune 500 CEO or some really high-notch lawyer or a doctor or whatever, that takes a lot of time and sacrifice and does not have flexibility. And that is so the opposite of what is helpful for family life. And I'm not saying it's necessarily totally wrong, but it's you have to realize you are going to be strained if you try to do that. And Jordan Peterson has talked about this. His background is with clinical psychology. So he speaks with people, actual individuals who are in these situations, and he talks about most women will not be happy pursuing that. Even without children, it's just too much. It's too intense. Most women don't want to do that. And they should not be compelled to do that by politics or by culture. We should encourage freedom and choices, and not be mad at men or society or the patriarchy because of the choices that women want to make. If women feel drawn towards things that you don't approve of, like, I'm sorry, like, you don't like their biology. Who made their biology? God. This is one of the reasons why I say that feminism is really ultimately at the root of it. It's against God. It's against the creator. It's against the way the world works. It's against how hard it is to have enough resources to live. I mean, there's so many things I think they could potentially get mad at. They could get mad at early feminism for stirring up discontent. They could get mad at consumerism of encouraging people to just want more things instead of saying, you know what, now that I can save time by not hand washing my stuff and I have a laundry machine, maybe I could spend more time playing with my kids versus cleaning the house. But no, that's not what people did. Instead, they said, we need to go get jobs so we can make more money. And now we're in this, still in this squeeze for time and totally stressed out. So yeah, there's a lot of things they could also blame, but that's not the direction they go. Instead, they just get mad at God. They don't get mad at their sin, and they don't get mad at God. They just say they're getting mad at men, they're getting mad at the patriarchy, they're getting mad at society. But what I'm saying is at the root of that is God and his sovereignty in the way that he made us, and the fact that he made some of these feminist women, they have to take that up with him, or they could find other things that are sort of at the source of it, which one of the biggest problems and ailments of women is feminism. So feminism really messed up this whole everything that was going for us, and it just makes me so mad. But it's just such a lie that to assume that new ideas are always better ideas, because there have been thousands of years where humans have evolved in the way that they have and in the roles that they have, and I believe that is for a reason. And we can take some wisdom from saying, okay, maybe it's good for men to spend more time with their children or whatever. Again, I'm not sure if they really didn't spend time with their children or not, but whatever, we'll go with that. And it can be good for men to be helpful and be aware of, hey, it makes a big difference if you go ahead and put your own dishes in the dishwasher, but then the wife unloads them. Like, that can be helpful. Like, I'm not saying everything is bad in the new ways that we look at things, but it's caused far more harm than good. And, fighting against biology is not a fun thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, and I would not recommend it. And I found in my own life, as I've tried to just sort of accept it and reframe things to say, okay, how would I feel differently if I just really accepted my femininity and rolled with that instead of feeling angry that I'm not more masculine? What if I just leaned into femininity? How would that feel? And you know what? It feels a lot better. My marriage is a lot better. We're having better sex. Not that we had bad sex before, but all of these things happen if you just lean that direction instead of trying to be a man. And it's so ironic since feminists hate men so much. So it's like, why do you want men? Why are you taking away female power by saying motherhood is so bad? I mean, it's just, love your strengths, love yourself, love who you are, love women, instead of hating women, trying to make them, like people say, second-class men, and some people have different personalities, and so we'll go different directions with careers. But what I'm saying is that it feels much better, and marriages go much better, family life goes much better, your life goes much better if you allow yourself to just accept, I'm a female, this is how it is, I'll be the one who's making the meals when, somebody else has a baby or whatever and gives it to them. It's gonna be on me, and that's okay. And I can learn how to be content in that, because feminist messes that up. And that's how that's gonna be. And I'm gonna care for my children and have the opportunity to be with them maybe, and I'm gonna take the primary in that and allow and be a support to my husband so he can make more money and I can reduce the stress around the house, and maybe I'll have some kind of side gig thing going, and that can be fantastic and a blessing, but that's the secondary. You need somebody to be the primary with the children, with raising children, especially young children, particularly under the age of 3. And you cannot compel, it is not ethically, morally, or economically wise to force companies to, give some kind of crazy extended maternity leave when they're not receiving any value. All that will do is drive prices up in general, because if companies are compelled to pay for workers who aren't working and then have to leave the spot open, so they have like this bottleneck in their system while all these women are on extended maternity leave. Like, it's not an efficient way. It's really not fair. It's not ethical to force companies to accommodate your personal desires. And it's not nice to try to guilt women for their personal desires to be the desires that you want them to be. So anyway, this is kind of my message, I guess, in a way, was aimed towards, as if I'm talking to a feminist, it's hard when if you've been kind of indoctrinated, you've heard all of this stuff, and you've really never considered this alternative point of view. I better go. Not quite sure what just happened, but anyway, peace out.